Hello, family, and welcome back to another episode of the Organize My Thoughts podcast. I am your host, Kyla Jackson, and today we're going to talk about how to be consistent when results are taking forever. This episode is for those of you who have been in your entrepreneurship journey or even just in your content creation journey, and you are wondering when you are going to experience the fruit of your labor. Listen, I know that this is a long game, and I personally know how frustrating it can be when you're putting all the effort in, you're showing up consistently, and you're still not seeing the results in the timing that you thought you would. In this episode, we're going to answer a question from the Clarity Cafe that dives right into this topic. And towards the middle of this episode, I'm going to give you some tips on how to stay consistent when the results seem to be taking too long, because I do not want you to give up on your journey. And often it's right in those moments where people want to give up where they reach their breakthrough. And I know that can be frustrating to hear because I know you want to experience the results right now. But the truth is you'll never experience those results if you give up. So you have to be in it for the long game. But let's go ahead and start off this episode answering a question from the Clarity Cafe. Today's question comes from Tari, and she says, "Hey Kyla, I've had some moments of discouragement in regards to podcasting and building a business around it. I'm in a season of obedience of just recording and talking about what God told me to talk about for that week. I just feel discouraged because so many celebrities have podcasts now. Really everybody and their mama have a podcast or YouTube channel, and I just feel lost in the mix and hopeless. I've heard time and time again to know my audience and have a problem to solve, but I don't know what that looks like on my end. I send out surveys and get some feedback, but I don't know how to move forward with that information. I want to work with a coach, but it's just not a financially sound decision for me in this season. I'm trying to remain content by knowing that obedience is success, but it's still hard in this season. What advice do you have for me to keep the faith and stay committed without giving up?" First, I just want to say thank you so much for submitting your questions to the Clarity Cafe. This topic hits so hard because I just remember in the beginning of my entrepreneurship journey, I was literally doing all the things. I was being consistent. I was showing up. I was getting on client calls and I was not converting clients. I was posting my content and it was getting like less than 100 views per video. And it was a frustrating time for me. And so I completely understand where you are right now. And I just want to say that I am so proud of you for not giving up on your journey. I know that you're frustrated during this time, but it sounds like you are still choosing to show up, and you also are taking some time to figure out some gap areas that may be missing in your content creation process. I know that you mentioned that you have a podcast and that one of the areas you struggle with is not really knowing what problem you solve. I don't know all the specifics of your channel, but I did kind of take a look, and I know that you have a podcast for moms. And so one of my first suggestions that I would have for you is to take a social media detox. There is so much more pressure added when we are constantly scrolling and seeing what everybody else is doing. Now, I know that social media is pretty much integrated into our lives. It's how we kind of detox from the day. It's even how we conduct research to how to become better. But when you're in a season like this where you're feeling discouraged, feeling weary, and tempted to compare yourself, it's so important that you just get offline for a second and really just sit still with God. We have to be really mindful to guard our hearts during this season because it is so easy to grow weary and well doing, right? You're putting in all this effort, you're not seeing the results, but as soon as you get online, it seems like everybody and their mama is surpassing you. And especially, celebrities, they have the advantage of already having an existing audience. And so it's an unfair comparison to make to people who are, again, on year 5 or year 6 of having a brand, and you are in the stages where not as many people know you. It is going to take a little bit longer to get that progress. And again, don't do yourself a disservice by comparing your year 1 to somebody's year 5. That's something that I had to remind myself of because, again, when you don't have an established audience and you're competing with somebody who, again, is a celebrity, they're already well known, it's just a fight that you're not going to win. But you can log off of social media for a while and just focus on your specific journey. I also recommend that you just take some time and go back to the original mission that God has given you. I'm not saying that you're doing anything wrong in your content, but one of the things that you said in your question was that you're not really sure what it looks like to solve a problem on your end. When I looked at your podcast, I know it's about helping moms, but I noticed that you spend a lot of time encouraging moms, which is great, but there needs to be a specific service that you're offering in order to have a business, right? So just encouragement alone, unless you are doing public speaking or something like that, is not really a actual business. I know that you also have a book, so maybe your service or product that you're offering is promoting the book. But aside from that, one of the problems that you're going to have to really solve is figuring out what are moms struggling with outside of just needing encouragement. Do they need productivity, right? Do they need systems to kind of manage all the different areas of their lives in order to show up effectively for what God is calling them to do? So maybe a service that you could offer is productivity coaching for moms, right? You have to get very specific. And I know when it comes to Holy Spirit-led podcasts, sometimes a lot of the topics that you are talking about are strictly rooted in faith. And I understand that because my original YouTube channel was all about that and still is to this day. But what I found that even in business, sometimes I have to create extra content that is business focused. So that way I'm still hitting those business goals. And so for me, what that looks like is I have a regular upload day where it's only content that the Holy Spirit has led me to create. And then I have another upload day where I specifically talk about a specific problem that my audience is dealing with that will lead them into a service that I have to offer. Now, the beauty about this is that as Christian entrepreneurs, everything that we do is rooted in faith. So don't feel like just because you're talking about a specific problem that relates to your business that you cannot involve your faith in it. God is involved in every single thing you do. However, again, there are some times where He will lead us to talk about a specific topic that has nothing to do with business, and that's okay. But for your business goals, you may just have to double up on your content and make sure that you are reaching both of those audiences. The last thing that I would recommend to you is to take some marketing and sales courses. There is so much stuff online that's for free if you don't have the option right now to invest in working with a coach to sharpen the skills that you may not be as strengthened in. And marketing and sales is one of those core things that you need to understand in order to really grow your business. And from there, you're actually able to take the feedback from your surveys and identify that core problem. And then with your marketing and sales knowledge, you'll be able to say, okay, this is the real problem that they're dealing with. Now let me craft an offer around that and then use that information to market better to them, right? That will inform the type of episodes that you need to be creating outside of just your Holy Spirit-led content. So I hope that that was helpful and that you're able to apply that to your situation. And again, don't grow weary in well-doing. I know it's so frustrating when you're not getting those results, but again, this is a long game. And if you continuously put forth the effort, take that advice that I've given you and make those changes, you're going to start to see improvement. But you are absolutely right that obedience is success, and just keeping that in mind will really help to ground you during those times where things aren't moving as quickly as you would like. So this is going to wrap up this segment of the Clarity Cafe. If you would like to submit your question to be featured on a future episode, you can click the link in the description box. And you can also submit your question anonymously if you would like. Now let's go ahead and get into these tips for how to be consistent when the results are taking too long. Earlier, I gave specific examples about her podcasting journey, but this really applies to any stage in business, no matter what product or service that you're offering. That first step of taking a social media detox is so important. I think that, again, social media is a beautiful tool, but our relationship with it really impacts our mental state and how we show up in our journey. And for me, I'm a person who unfortunately can get very easily distracted by what others are doing because I'm always looking to improve. I'm always looking to research, and sometimes I go down these rabbit holes where I am, susceptible to comparing myself. And so I have to get off of YouTube sometimes. I'm not really even on a lot of other social media platforms for that reason, because I need to spend most of my time executing and not getting stuck in my head. So for me, this isn't something that I just do every now and then. It's something that I have to do on a regular basis. So if you haven't done that in a while, definitely take the time to just get offline. And also take an information fast. I talk about this all the time, but when it comes to not getting the results that you expect in a certain amount of time, sometimes you just have so much information and so many different methods that you're trying to apply that you're getting constantly distracted from your original plan. The more information that you have that you're not using, the more distracted you're going to be. So in addition from getting offline and getting off of social media, take a pause from all the research and studying and just implement consistently what you have until you get to a point where you reach a knowledge gap, which means that you don't have enough information to move forward. My second tip for being consistent when the results are taking too long is to go back to creating for an audience of one. Again, sometimes we get so distracted by the numbers and the analytics and all of these other things that we lose sight that if our content or product or service just helps one person, we're making an impact. And I know, again, we all have these huge business goals and content goals that we want to hit, but at the core of working for God is helping others. And so even if you're not where you want to be, somewhere along your journey, you have helped someone else. And so something that I like to do is I like to go back, and I actually have a folder in my phone of testimonials, of reviews, of comments of people that have been impacted by what I'm doing. And I go back and read these from time to time because I think we can get so distracted by where we aren't yet and what we haven't accomplished that we forget that we really are making impact. Again, don't allow where you are not right now to discount all the progress that you've made. There may have been a season in your life where you were even so stuck inside your head with overthinking and fear that you didn't even want to move forward. But now you've launched your product, you've launched your service, you've launched the channel, and you started being consistent. And that is something that is worth celebrating. So again, pause, go back to creating for an audience of one, and also take some time to review your old testimonials, comments, and people that have supported you in your journey. I guarantee you're doing so much better than you think you are. The last tip that I would give you to be consistent when things are taking too long is to revisit your original mission and vision. Sometimes in our entrepreneurship journey and even in our content creation journey as we're creating content for our businesses, sometimes it's easy to get distracted from what God originally told you to do. This happened to me about last year where I got so excited from getting feedback about what people wanted that I started only creating content for what people wanted versus what God originally told me to do. And that led to me having too many offers, getting very distracted from the original mission. And I had to do a hard reset. And I had to make sure that I wasn't just doing good things in business, but the things that God called me to do. And so that's really why I had to start a whole nother podcast page, because after visiting my mission and vision, I had to get back to the core of what God was calling me to do. And sometimes it's not until you take a step back from social media, you get offline and stop researching information that you're able to remember what you originally were offering. Again, especially I think in this time where everybody's teaching you how to build a business quickly and they're giving all these suggestions, you can feel like if I just pause what I'm doing and do what they're doing, then I'll get results faster. But really, you just set yourself back because you've gotten away from the original thing that God has called you to do. And so the beauty in this is that there's always time to pause and reset. The problem with this is, of course, depending on how long you've been doing this, you might be starting from scratch, and that's just the reality of it. But I think overall, my biggest piece of advice is to really just get offline and disconnect. You have to spend more time executing than you do researching and comparing, right? You have what you need most of the time to execute and be consistent. But if you're so focused on the timeline, it's really going to rob you of the joy that comes with just being present right now. There are great things that God is doing in your business right now. There are great things that is happening with your content right now, and we have to stay focused. So you're definitely not alone. This business process takes sometimes a long time. And we see so many examples of entrepreneurs who persisted past those moments where they wanted to give up and they got their biggest breakthroughs. And I actually want to do an episode maybe talking about some of those testimonies so that you can be encouraged. I didn't even have that written down as a point, but sometimes you may need to go and study the stories of people who got their breakthrough when they wanted to give up, right? As a way to increase your faith. They say that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And a lot of these testimonies can really be a blessing to all of us if we take the time to just sit and process them. So we've covered a lot in this episode, and I just want to take the time to quickly recap how to be consistent when results are taking too long. Number 1, take a social media detox and an information fast. Number 2, create for an audience of 1. Just focus on helping one person, getting one new client, selling one new offer at a time, instead of trying to accomplish so much and getting distracted from your original goal. And number 3, go back to your original vision and mission and sit with the Lord to make sure that you are still on track. Any area that you've got distracted in, it's now a great time to reset and focus on that original problem. You want to be able to clearly articulate the offer that you are selling to people so that people know what you do, but also you remember and don't get distracted along the way. What somebody else is doing in their life has nothing to do with what God is doing yours. And when it's your time, it will be your time and it will be a wonderful time, but you'll never see it if you give up. So don't grow weary in well-doing and keep going. This is going to wrap up another episode of the Organize My Thoughts podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please like and share with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe. I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.